Good morning, everyone. I'm Marian Levy, the Associate Dean of the School of Public Health at the University of Memphis. And on behalf of the University of Memphis, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar series, Telehealth for Vulnerable Populations. As the COVID-19 pandemic spreads across the globe, we're now at 435,000 deaths worldwide and 116,000 deaths just in the United States alone. We're noticing the disproportionate impact that COVID-19 has on communities of color in terms of physical, mental, and even financial impact. On a positive note, telehealth has become a vehicle that expands access to healthcare for vulnerable populations. Our goal with this series of webinars is to share best practices and lessons learned so that we can not only improve access and increase access to healthcare for underserved populations, but also improve the quality of healthcare so that it's culturally relevant, effective, and empowering. So to that end, the University of Memphis has developed a series of 6 one-hour webinars related to telehealth for vulnerable populations. And our topic today is opportunities in telehealth. I'd like to introduce our panelists, Dr. Laura Casey and Matt Davidson. Dr. Laura Casey is a professor at the University of Memphis. She received her doctorate in educational psychology and is a board-certified behavior analyst. She also completed master's degrees in community counseling and educational psychology and is a national certified counselor and a national certified school psychologist. Dr. Casey co-directs the Autism, Behavior, and Communication program at the University of Memphis. Our second presenter is Matt Davidson. Matt received his Master of Science degree from the University of North Texas and has been a board-certified behavior analyst since 2012. He has also provided behavior analytic consultation in public schools in North Mississippi and Memphis area charter schools and served as a clinical director of an ABA clinic in North Mississippi. Matt currently works with Project Memphis, providing ABA therapy to underserved children in Memphis and Shelby County. And we'd like to thank at this point the FedEx Institute and our partners for hosting this webinar series. Before we begin, I'd like to share some housekeeping information. The panelists will speak for about 25 or 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So please type any questions you have in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and kindly designate the presenter who you'd like to address your question to. After the webinar, we'll send you a link to the presentations and also a brief survey that we hope you'll complete to provide feedback to us. And if you want to get continuing education credits for social work, behavior analysis, or public health, you must complete the survey. For those of you who are behavior analysts, the CEU helper is where you check in and provide your code to get CEUs. The check-in code today is 6444. And you have to, my understanding is you have to enter that within the first 5 minutes of the webinar. And checkout is 2115. You have to enter that within the last 5 minutes in order to get your CEU credits. If you're certified in public health and you want to get a CEU credit, just go directly to the NBPHE, the National Board of Public Health Examiners website. You don't need any certificate from us, just do that directly. So I think without further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to Dr. Casey, our first panelist.
Hi, thank you so much, Marian, for that warm welcome and the housekeeping. And any behavior analysts out there, be sure you use the CEU helper. There's an app, so you'll want to use that to get your continuing ed credits. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. Like Marian said, I'm a professor in special ed, currently over Project Memphis, which serves 0 to 3, and we go in home. And we recently added behavior analytics services to this much needed service that we're already providing. So it's been a great opportunity. Interestingly enough, as soon as we started providing behavior analytics services, COVID hit. And so we were quickly struggling. How do we do this? What do we do? And all I could think about was, how were we not prepared, right? Like, we've been watching cartoons. Jetsons clearly told us this was coming your way, but we weren't listening or thought it was too far in the future. Something we do just whenever, and now it's something we do daily. And once we started doing it, there were so many opportunities that I just can't wait to share with everyone. So this is obviously, we're not, diagnosing sore throats, but this is how the Jetsons lived. So we're catching up to them these days. We have used technological solutions in the past for rural areas and for underserved populations. It's primarily been telephone or it's been email. And then you start wondering about the HIPAA and the FERPA. And as telehealth and COVID hit, all of this was really brought to the forefront relatively quickly. I do talk about telehealth. It can also be called teleintervention, because a lot of times what we do as behavior analysts is we want to intervene and we're going to change your behavior, whether we're going to increase it or decrease it, we're looking to change it. And a lot of times we're looking to have the parent implement that change. So we've got to be the coach too. And it's a wonderful opportunity to use telehealth in addition to or in place of these face-to-face opportunities. Without telehealth, a lot of individuals with autism would not receive the services they need. And that's even been brought more to our attention now. A lot of children aren't even diagnosed with autism, which is often the first step to being able to receive those early intervention services, is that you need a diagnosis, and they're not able to because of transportation or lack of medical doctors there that can provide that diagnostic tool. And now they're kind of venturing out and they're doing some remote diagnostics too, which I'm curious to see how that goes and the reliability there. It's awesome that a lot of research studies had already been done, and so we were able to pull from them. Almost all of the studies out there pointed to telehealth being a great way to increase access, that it's a way for us to evaluate these behavior triggers that maybe we can't see all the time. And it's also a way for family members to receive more comprehensive training. We know that what happens in our session is so important, but what happens outside of that session is often very important, and sometimes more. We don't want the child just to receive services in the time we're with them. We want the parent to be trained to continue to implement those and to reinforce those strategies that we've provided. And this is an opportunity for us to be more hands-off and be more vocal and actually coach. So I wanted to share this with you really quickly, and we'll just watch a little bit of it.
At 7 months old, John Michael Crawford was diagnosed with tuberous sclerosis, a genetic disorder that often causes developmental issues, including autism. So when his parents began to notice delays, they weren't sure where to turn.
It hurts because as a mama, you want to be able to do and do, but you got to know it takes a village.
The Crawfords, who live in Arkansas, expanded their village to include experts more than 1,500 miles away at UCLA's Semel Institute in Los Angeles, where scientists are exploring an innovative approach using technology to bring
Dr. Casey, we can't see the video.
Patients thousands of miles away.
Every week they practice with their baby. They upload their videos.
You have to switch which screen you're sharing.
Who's at the sites.
The remote sessions are really the only reason we were able to participate in the program.
All right, hang on. Okay, so y'all weren't able to see the video, but you heard the audio?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll do the video for you real quick. Basically, it was a mom and she was struggling and they didn't have access, so they connected to UCLA, and it was a family in Arkansas. which is sad they had to go that far. So hopefully the next time when this video actually plays, you will see a family from Arkansas coming to the University of Memphis and teleconnecting that way. But they had a computer set up in their home, and the computer live streamed to UCLA. And through that live stream, the individual at UCLA was providing feedback to that person. And so that's an example of doing it synchronous. They also, in this video clip, shared some information about the mom would video the kiddo and then send it. So it was asynchronous, but that allowed the provider to see behaviors in what was real time, and they were captured. And through that process, it worked beautifully. And this child in Arkansas that would not have been able to receive those services was able to receive those services, and those families were then trained. So it's a beautiful example and a beautiful video. So you'll just have to trust me on that one. And when you receive the PDF, you can watch it. So like we were saying, it can be synchronized. And when it is synchronized, it's very important that the person on the other end feels like they could reach out and shake your hand. We know that we can't really reach through the computer, and we probably can't even shake hands right now, but working remotely needs to seem just as compassionate as working face-to-face. And it's important that they can see your expressions and your smiles and know that you're warm and that you're there for them. And a study out of the University of Iowa suggested a lot of benefits and opportunities for this too, that they were also able to provide some educational interventions in addition to the behavior analytics services. Some of the opportunities that you can do telehealth is if you're able to go with the parent and you're able to, like on your phone, like say you've got a HIPAA secure database and you're able to live stream and talk with them right there. You can say, hey, Dad, look, let's make this a joint attention opportunity. You can teach through direct instruction or incidental. It also allows the clinician to see a behavior that may not be in clinic. There are so many times when a parent would say to me, my children can't share, they can't get along, they can't do this, and I never see the sibling. And I'll say, well, can you bring the sibling with you to clinic? And they're like, no. And so if they send me a video like this, maybe, or a picture, a snapshot, I'm not exactly seeing what happens, but I have a pretty good idea of what's going on here. And that can help, just being able to see snapshots. Also, through direct observation, we can see the actual environment. So when they say, this typically happens when we're in the kitchen, we can look to see, well, what are the triggers? What's maybe setting this kid off in the kitchen? And what we see may not be what the parent's reporting. And it's not because they're reporting inaccurate information. It may just be that they're not seeing what we're seeing. And so it's important for us to lay our eyes on it. It can help us confirm or disconfirm something. We may have been convinced that this kid was doing it to escape a task. And then we see it and we're really clear now they're doing it for attention. This will also help you when you're setting up your intervention and collecting baseline data. If you can see the behavior to figure out, are we wanting to collect frequency data? Or is this a behavior that doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, it's on? We want to decrease that behavior. And we'll want to figure out, how are we going to record it? How are we going to train the parent to record that data? And then we want to figure out what the function is. And like I referenced earlier, there's escape, attention, access to tangible, or automatic. This video, y'all should be able to see. So somebody shout if you can't. But this is a video that, let's say in telehealth, maybe a mom would record because she's telling us, hey, this is what my child does, and I just can't wrap my head around what she's saying. So she videos this and lets me watch it. Okay, so for this kiddo, he's attention seeking, right? Like he's totally fine walking around the house looking for his mom and the dog, and as soon as he sees them, boom, drops to the floor and throws a tantrum. Mom describing this to the clinician probably isn't quite as good as the clinician laying their eyes on this. I mean, this is like clockwork. And once you see it, it's amazing. And then you can come up with the intervention and you can help the mom. Like right now, she's doing a great job of ignoring, but he's still following her. He's still seeking that attention. So little snapshots like that can really help the clinician if the parent can upload these things asynchronous and let us see it. When we think about the behaviors, like I said, we always want to think about the environment. And so what happens before? So what's the antecedent? You know, in this situation, what was it the kid seeing the mom? Was it the kid seeing the dog? What was it that was setting off his tantrum? What's the behavior? The tantrum. So if the tantrum is the behavior for this kid, how do we want to measure that? Do we want to decrease the frequency? Do we want to decrease the duration? Do we want to get rid of it completely? What do we want to do? And we can use that video to guide us. And then you want to figure out what's the parent doing after? Like how long can this mom really walk around her house avoiding this kid who's attention seeking? Like at what point is she going to have to engage? And then when she does engage, what has she taught the kid? Okay, I can do this for about 30, 40 minutes. You keep it up and then I'm going to finally attend to you. So we have to think through all of that, and having those videos in real time or delivered to us can help. This is just a graphic at the bottom that kind of shows what I was talking about. Like the antecedent leads to the behavior, which leads to the consequence. So if we see a green light and we're driving, the green light tells us it's okay to go. Our behavior is our right foot pushes the pedal. The consequence is we get closer to the destination where we were going. So that's the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. And the stoplight is a really great example because we have different behaviors when the yellow pops up, right? Some of us, our right foot hits the gas a little harder, and others of us, we might hit the brake. The same with the red light. You know, different antecedents, different triggers, different behaviors follow, and then different consequences follow that behavior. And we learn that over time. And as we learn that over time, that becomes part of what we do because of what the consequence has been. We either got to the destination faster or we got pulled over. And so we figure this out, right? And that's how kids and children do too. And it does happen over time. And there is most of the time a consistent and reliable pattern. And once we identify that pattern, then we can intervene. So this is an example of a common trigger. We all love these checkouts. I don't think that's Target, but it kind of looks like Target, and Target is my go-to. So we're going to say this is Target. And I'm just as guilty. I'll go through there and I'll pick up some last minute stuff, right? Because I saw it. What does the kid do? Right? She sees it. She cries. We give her the sucker. It's what we do. So the antecedent was all this great candy in a place where mom's stuck in a line, or dad pushing the buggy, and she can't escape. If she escapes this candy aisle, she goes farther back in line. We don't want to go farther back in line. We don't want to wait, period, these days for anything. So the kid knows parent's trapped. I'm going to scream. Parent's not going to want a whole heck of a lot of attention from the target. So I'm going to get my sucker, right? So they learn pretty quickly, and it's a pretty reliable pattern. So we have to figure out how to intervene there. With telehealth and with remote learning, the cool thing is the behavior analyst or the behavior technician really does become that coach. And so the parent can no longer simply rely on, you're going to fix my child. You change this. Our job then becomes to help them identify what those triggers and behaviors and consequences are, and give them the strategies or the playbook. If we're a coach, give them the playbook to help them win. We're on the parents' team, and it's important they see us as being a teammate coach, not just a coach that says, here's what you do, go do it. If you don't do it, you're out, because you can't really be out of parenting, right? You kind of got to help them get through that. So in summary, by increasing the frequency, being able to see the clients in real time or asynchronous, it increases the ability to communicate with the parents. It allows us to see behaviors in real time. We can observe recordings, so we can go back and look. Like maybe at first we thought it was this, but after we watch it a couple of times, we figure it's this. It's a lot like coaching. The coach that goes back and watches the game. Hey, I really thought it was this person that was the one we needed to stop, and wait, it's this guy. So you can learn a lot through watching and rewatching to really help you design your intervention. You can also modify treatment plans. Maybe we had an intervention going, and after we see it, we're like, oh, hold up, let's hit reverse. The pace of the treatment and the progression can often be accelerated through telehealth, because we're not having to wait until we see them again until that next visit or that next session. We are actually able to see it in real time, and the parent can access us more frequently. At this time, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I am going to kick it over to Matt Davidson. All right, Matt, you're up.
I gotta click all the buttons here. Okay, assume that everyone can see my screen and it's the right screen.
Looks good.
All right. So I'm going to go over some of the different methods or ways that you can use telehealth with families for different practitioners. As soon as I can advance this slide. Here we go. So I just wanted to review some of the terms that we've used. So synchronous refers to occurring at the same time or live, and asynchronous refers to recording and viewing that occurs at different times or just recorded. So the various methods of teletherapy, which is another term that's often used, it delineates telehealth, which can apply more to medical professionals, and teletherapy kind of represents more of OT, PT, speech, people who aren't necessarily healthcare providers, but is a term that refers to this style of therapy. Some of the different types are synchronous direct therapy with the child or just the client, synchronous parent coaching, synchronous parent training, asynchronous parent training, and asynchronous observation. So here's an example of synchronous direct therapy.
Hungry shark, can you help him find food? You want to help him find food? Okay, yes. That one starts with a Y. There you go, yes. All right. Okay, ready? Put your hand in the mouth. Okay, mommy be back, okay? Okay, all right. The shark wants to eat an apple. Find the apple. Feed the shark. Say, nom, 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 nom. I don't know if we drag the apple or if we just click it. Can you click on the apple? Oh, can you click it? Yeah, can you take it to his mouth? Try to get it in his mouth. Let's see if it works. Nom, 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 nom. All right, good job. I don't know why it's not going. Can you hit, let's see. Can you hit that button right there? Good job. Okay, the shark wants to eat a ball. Find the ball. Yep, make sure you click it. There you go. All right, let's try.
So that's just an example of synchronous direct therapy. All right, pause again. So this is best for learners that have instructional control. Also for long-term clients where you have rapport built up, that they'll follow your instructions. And you can be interactive like that. Also good for modeling for parents. All right, so here's an example of synchronous parent coaching.
Okay, so just remember today we're gonna be focusing on following through whenever we place a demand. So you might wanna set a timer for him, and we're gonna be working on an activity that's not his super big time favorite. What are we gonna be working on right now, Mom?
Okay, we're gonna be working on coloring. I have his coloring book and his markers, and I have the timer.
Perfect. Okay, so how long are we gonna work for?
I believe you told me that right now he can only do about 3 minutes, so I'm gonna set it for 3 minutes.
Perfect, that's great. Good job listening, Mom.
Okay, so timer. Okay, let's color.
Okay, Mom, so I'm gonna need you to
He
get
always
up
does
from
this.
it.
I don't know what's due.
I totally get it. So right now he's trying to escape the demand, and we're gonna have you get up from the table. I'm gonna have you walk towards him, and you may need to get him and actually hold his hand, hold his little arm, have him come back to the table and restate the demand. First, we're gonna color, and then maybe you can have him pick a super fun surprise that we can work for out.
Okay,
So go ahead and do that.
All right.
Discount.
So something that we use at Project Memphis and TEIS uses is the family guided routines based instruction or intervention. And so this would be a great model for that, where the therapist is working directly with the parent and the child in the same room. You have a couple options that you can use, either the loudspeaker like that with where the child can hear, or you can use some wireless headphones if the parent has some, where they can, only the parent can hear you and you can coach them through while watching the entire scenario and provide them that feedback and the prompts that they need without the client hearing those particular prompts. All right, so you also have synchronous parent training. So here's an example of that.
Okay, and is that the playroom or kind of stuff in the living room?
That is their playroom area. But they access to the living room and all of the playroom stuff.
Yeah, that's good that you're flexible. I mean, you're kind of trapped, so it's nice to have a little bit of change of scenery. So today we're going to talk about older or our younger one. Which one is kind of our focus?
So let's start with a 3-year-old. She is always been for a bit of a structure, and now with that structure, we did see a little regression where she was already fully potty trained, and then since the pandemic, and even like when kids weren't being sent to school anymore, and they were consolidating classes, like she was having accidents, so like smears and accidents, and then had accidents the first day we practiced call from the pandemic. I don't know, I've just kind of been telling her she's on vacation and having him trust like what is really happening. Even though.
All right, so sorry if y'all couldn't hear that, but basically it was just the BCBA and the parent talking through some scenarios, some issues, and the BCBA advising through some of those issues and thinking through what the problem could be and what the parent could do differently in those encounters in the future. Let's back up. All right, so here's an example of asynchronous parent training. Maybe nothing is happening when I click the button. So, well, that one's broken. Guess we missed that one. So asynchronous parent training might be something like the parent records the video, and Dr. Casey talked about this earlier. You're walking through Target and you know this is about to happen. You pull out your phone, you record this whole interaction, and then you can send that to the BCBA or other professional and get their feedback on it. What could I have done differently in this situation? What should I do in the future? And that can be embedded within that synchronous parent training. Like, hey, let's watch that video you sent me. Oh,
Let's
okay.
begin.
Well, now we're going to watch it.
What a prompt is.
Oh, sorry, this is
Prompts
this one.
are stimuli presented to ensure the occurrence of a response. In other words, prompts are cues that an instructor can use to make sure a child succeeds at a task. For example, when teaching a child to do a puzzle or put together Mr. Potato Head, the therapist can tap the correct space with a finger. This prompts the child to place the piece in the correct place. When teaching a child to brush his teeth, the therapist might physically guide the child's hands through the motions. This ensures that the child performs the correct actions.
Brush teeth.
All right.
A variety of prompts.
So, sorry, this is an example of where you could assign some videos for a parent to watch about a particular skill that you're going to be working on in your synchronous parent coaching or parent training, so that they can have that background information and that rationale before you begin that session. It's something they can cover on their own time. You know, filling in knowledge gaps. Hey, like as a behavior analyst, I might want that parent to learn something about reinforcement or running a particular protocol, or what do I mean when I say build rapport with your child. So filling in some of that, explaining technical terms. What is a prompt hierarchy? Hey, I can just send you a link to a video so that you can get that information outside of our session. You could also shoot videos to illustrate programs. So if I want a parent to see models of the programs that I want them to run, I can demo those at a different time, record them, and share them with the parents so that they can see them and go back to them if they have questions about those videos. They can just keep reviewing them and then ask you any questions that they have. So asynchronous review is more of what I was talking about with recorded videos.
Come on, up you get. We're going in the bath. Come on, up you get. Up. Oh well, Mummy will go in the bath. Well, Mummy go in the bath. Okay, ta-ta. Mummy's going in the bath. Ta-ta.
Okay. So this is more of those in the moment observations and target at home. You're like, oh, this happens at bedtime. But as a therapist, you know, I have my own child and I have to put them to bed, so I can't be on a session with you. But you could record that session or that interaction, and we can review it at a different time. Or if it's getting up in the morning, or it's even in the middle of the night that you like, they have night terrors. Okay, well, I'm not going to come watch a Zoom call at 2 a.m., but you can record it and we can review it later. And you can observe in various locations, Target, Walmart, school, you know, FERPA allowing, and all of those things in different locations, and then review that during your session at home or on a Zoom call. So here's an example of a possible workflow where we could use those different types of methods. So if I'm doing, for this instance, an FBA, and I want to do the indirect FBA component, I can interview caregivers through Synchronous teletherapy, and just get that direct from the parent things. I can email them the documents for them to fill out surveys and different questionnaires. We can move into the direct FBA portion where I'm going to observe the caregiver and child interactions, and that can be asynchronous or synchronous. Whether the parent sets up the laptop or whatever in the room and just lets me watch what's happening, or they video it and send it to me, and I can use that as part of my direct FBA observations. We can use asynchronous parent training where I can assign online lessons or create videos for parents to watch when they can. You know, after bedtime, when they finally have a minute to themselves, they can go check out these videos, or during nap time or something like that. For direct therapy, we can model for parents how to run interventions using a teleconference software, either with the parent there doing the hands-on work or working directly with the child. And then we can do synchronous parent training to where we're looking at, or we're talking to that parent and giving them feedback in the moment about how they're implementing those things. All right. I think that is everything that I have. Yep. Here's some other resources. So Autism Navigator is a great source for both parents and professionals. Dr. Rachel Taylor on YouTube has a long series of videos about telehealth and that transition to telehealth. Vanderbilt Kennedy Center Triad, and that's the link there, also has tons of information both about telehealth and about just regular intervention, and a lot of different resources and materials that you can use with families. Obviously, Autism Speaks is a great resource. And so the UC Davis ADEPT has parent training modules, which is that asynchronous parent training that walks through at a basic level different components of ABA therapy and behavioral principles that, and this is just an example that I know off the top of my head. There are many other resources for parent training modules, but that's just an example. And then also the Autism Partnership Foundation has a free RBT training course through that link, that if you want your parents to have more information, more technical skill, more background information, you could encourage them to check that out. If they're going to be running trials instead of one of your RBTs, that is also a possibility. And here are some references for the videos. I pulled them off of YouTube. They are not my property. And that's our contact information for Dr. Casey and myself. I think we're ready for our questionnaire portion. So I guess, stop sharing my screen.
Yeah. Thank you both. Excellent job. I don't think I see any question. There was a question, Laura, about the CEUs, about the website.
So I think today we're just jinxed with technological difficulties, which is unfortunate in the opportunities talk. But the CEU helper has us listed, has the behavior analyst listed as getting 0 CEUs. So I have reached out to the Tennessee Association of Behavior Analysis, and they are going to fix it. So what I would recommend is, if you logged on, great, and then wait and go ahead and log out so that they can see in their database that you logged in and you logged out and you were here for the entirety, and then they'll fix it and update it. So your certificate will represent the 1 hour of continuing ed. The other thing that I wanted to add on to Matt's presentation too, if any of you all out there are watching and are interested in becoming registered behavior technicians, happen to live in the Memphis area, please take advantage of that free RBT and reach out to either him or myself. We're always looking to grow our programs. Project Memphis, we need more direct care help here for individuals and children. If you're at U of M, we have a great undergrad ABA minor that leads to the RBT certificate. So we're here for y'all, and we're really committed to providing services for this population.
Great. Let's see, there's a question here. Let's see. How have you handled disruptive siblings entering the picture of your therapy, to either of you?
I'll take it. So this one, it can be tricky, especially if you either have a single mom or there's only one parent in the house at the moment. One thing you can do is attempt to engage that other child in another activity. Not my favorite thing, but screen time is a great babysitter. If there is another parent in the house, you can ask them to hopefully entertain that child. If you can arrange for another family member to watch them just during the session, that's a possibility. But yes, that is definitely an issue with teletherapy, that you either have to adapt to it and work with both to where mom is splitting her attention or dad is splitting their attention between the two children, or find a way to distract and entertain the other disruptive sibling while engaging in that. And just, that's your baseline, is that you have to anticipate disruptions. You're not going to have a perfectly isolated therapy session in a home. It's just the nature of it.
And then Rami said that he posted the video for today's session in PowerPoints. He gave the link. So if you look at the chat box, there's the link for where the PowerPoints and the video will be stored, will be housed, will be archived. I have a question. I don't see, wait, here's another question. Thanks so much, great suggestion, very good. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about your work in Project Memphis?
Sure. So before the COVID times, we did in-home therapy with kids 0 to 3. So the TIS system will assess children and determine whether they need developmental supports or OT-PT speech. And then on top of that, if they determine there is like a behavioral issue or there might be some red flags for autism, they'll just add us as a service provider, and we'll go in and assess the child and see if they qualify for either a functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention plan, or if we're going to do some sort of skills-based training because they, of the signs of autism. We don't do that diagnosis. We just do a skills-based assessment and then start working directly with the child in the case of an RBT. And then as a BCBA, I can do parent training as well, and then supervise the RBT providing services. Now, during the COVID times, we're doing teletherapy, where the RBT is working with the parent to run basic trials and sessions and work on, eye contact and rapport building and basic communication things that the parent can practice outside of therapy. And I will sit in on those supervision sessions and provide my feedback. And at that same time, I'm looking at the data from the sessions and updating graphs and modifying protocols and that sort of thing during the sessions. So hopefully, once this is all over, we can get back to doing our normal ABA sessions. But
we have some in the chat box. Someone said, I work for a school district as a school social worker, providing counseling and skills training to students with social emotional needs. What platform or program could I look into to use to provide teletherapy with my students? Our teachers use Google Classroom video. Use Google Classroom, but I don't know if it's secure enough. That's a good question for confidential things discussed in therapy.
Okay, so I know that TEIS has a requirement, and this may be different as far as FERPA, but I guess this covers HIPAA. But in general, HIPAA has relaxed a lot of their requirements around teletherapy during the pandemic. But I know for TEIS, they require that you can use basically anything that's not public facing. So obviously don't do Facebook Live, or I don't know if you can do it on YouTube or whatever, but anything that's private, like the university uses Blue Jeans, Zoom now has security to it. So that technically meets that requirement. I'm not super sure about Google Classroom. I haven't used that platform, but as long as you can secure who can access that, like Zoom has the waiting room, to where you get to determine who comes into your meeting. And at that point, it is secure. So it depends a lot on your security settings. And there are some great resources online that can walk you through those security settings.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, always be sure to check with your supervisor at your school and get consent and make sure that the consent form is approved by your direct supervisor at your school.
And here's another question, maybe Laura, you can address this. Given the current racial tension in the United States, how does it affect your work with clients of color? When choosing videos for parents to watch, do you try to be culturally aware?
Yes, so of course we're gonna want to, and the research actually points to when you use video modeling with a child. So video modeling is an intervention that the child will watch another person exhibit that behavior correctly. And the research states that it's more effective if the child can relate to that individual. So if it's a 5-year-old African-American male and I'm a 40-year-old female doing it, it's not going to really hit with them. I mean, some of it might transfer, sure, but it's going to be much more relatable if they can envision themselves and see someone that's like them doing that activity. So yes, that is something that our research base has always supported from day one. And I think now will be really paramount that all therapists use that cultural sensitivity.
And just to piggyback on that, I definitely agree. Obviously, you're limited to the resources that are available, but I would definitely slant towards, similar models for imitation, and, talking, not leaving things unspoken, like having those conversations with families, like, what do you feel is appropriate? What would you like to see for your child? And being aware, like looking for content that fits well with your client base. Obviously, we are restricted by what we can find, which should encourage like looking for those resources and asking people to create those resources to help the underserved that they can relate to. I hope that answers the question.
And getting back to the previous question about the school, working in schools, Tanya wrote, Google Meet is compliant with BAA signed. That's what we use. So that's what Tanya said.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Let's see if there's something else. I don't see any other questions so far. Let's see. Laura, do you want to tell us about your work with children and families? A little bit of background.
Sure. So I do have a long history of working in homes and in clinic, and now overseeing a lot of and running a lot of grants. And one of the things that I am very strongly committed to is making sure that the parent and the caregiver, that they're bought into whatever it is that we're doing. So like Matt said, you want to ask the parent, you know, I have this intervention, what do you think? You know, because I also have this other intervention. This one may be a little bit more researched, but this one is, you know, not too far behind. And would you like to see which one might work better for your family? We definitely don't want to force something on them that's not going to fit in their daily routine. And I think that's an opportunity for telehealth, is that we better understand their daily routine, and it may help us not have such a long menu of interventions, but we might be able to now say, I've seen kind of what's going on, and from what I can tell, this one would be a good fit for you. So let's don't even look at these other 10. What do you think about this one? And once they say yes, and you get their buy-in, then you can move forward. So children come with families, children come with siblings, nieces, aunts, uncles, everybody. And it's so important. The lady in the video that you will see later talks about it. It takes a village, and it often does. And the village may be next door, maybe in your house, maybe across the country, but don't be afraid to reach out to that village and know that we're all here to help.
And Dr. Preston, I had a comment, cultural competency means asking the client if there are any concerns they may have regarding issues of color. That's a good point. Very good point.
Yes, thank you.
I don't see any additional questions.
Jacqueline has one in the chat.
Oh, good, good, good. Are there any concerns from therapists or clinicians regarding getting sued over recorded sessions with clients?
I'll take that one. We do not record sessions with clients for that reason, because of HIPAA and FERPA and all of that. So for asynchronous, that would be on the parent's choice whether they send those videos to the BCBA or not. And you would definitely want to make sure that those were protected in their transmission as well, and where they're stored, because those still fall under HIPAA. So I haven't had any therapists or clinicians have concerns because we don't record sessions.
Okay.
I think with everything, consent is key, and making sure that you run everything through legal, and that the behavior analyst is up to date on their ethics codes and all of those things. But consent is key. And even with children, when they reach a certain age, you want to get a assent. You want to make sure that they understand and that they agree to it. We're not going to see the changes we need to see if the parent doesn't consent and the child doesn't want to do it. So I think keeping all of that in mind, but yes, run everything through legal, make sure it's the parent knows and you know, and always check the ethical guidelines.
And I know the two of you train students as well. So how do you prepare your students in terms of ethical training and adhering to the moral guidelines of your profession?
So all of our courses are aligned with the task list, and whether you're a behavior analyst or whether you're a registered behavior technician, you have a task list that's defined nationally. because these are national certifications, and embedded in that task list are also a code of ethics.
Okay.
So our coursework has standalone ethics courses, and we run through scenarios, and I'm actually teaching an ethics course right now online, and that it's a lot of scenarios. And the great thing about scenarios is you don't have all the information. It's kind of like real life. You don't always get all the information, and it depends on who you're talking to. So it's great for us to think through those and to come up with plausible solutions.
Okay, good. Let's see. I don't see any additional questions. Anything else that the two of you would like to discuss or share?
The only thing I would like to add is once you do become certified as an RBT, you're going to want to keep up your continuing education. And if you're a BCBA, there are also a certain number of ethical CEUs that you have to get each year. And so I think that's important. Our field really tries to stay on top of that. We recently had a conference, and there were several sessions too on cultural responsiveness and awareness and appreciation, and a lot of sensitivity training. So I think as a field, a behavior analytic field, we're very driven and by data, but we're also compassionate, and that's the clinician and our role as teachers, mine and Matt's, to relay that compassion so that we can get into the parents and the child's world and build that trust and that rapport, like he was talking about. Like, it's not good enough just to say, oh, we've got a great rapport. You want to be able to show it. Anybody that walks into the room needs to know that rapport is there and you've paired yourself with them.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think we'll end on that note. We'll end a little bit early. For the people who are behavior analysts, the checkout code, if the app works correctly, is 2115. That's 2115. And I'd really like to thank Laura and Matt for an excellent job today, and everyone who participated. Thank you so much. And a special thanks to Rami Lotte from the FedEx Institute, who is working behind the scenes to coordinate all these webinars and make sure they run properly. So again, the webinars and all the presentations will be on that website, and after the presentation, the participants will receive an email from Rami or Claudio about the location of it, and please fill out the survey for the feedback for us. Until next time, thank you so much.